This woman has been tasked with hunting down an artificial intelligence threatening to end humanity, but in reality, she is the reason for the threat in the first place. In 2043, sirens blared throughout the city as people desperately called emergency operators, saying that an unknown species was out to attack them. On the news, reporters stated that man-made robots had forgone their security protocols. Over 500,000 people died from AI-controlled drone strikes in Bangalore, and over 1 million people were killed by the deranged AI bots. The leader of the AI robots was a humanoid called Harlan, who was built by AI specialist Val Shepard to improve life on Earth, and lived with Val and her daughter Atlas. Harlan had now become responsible for the instruction overriding in the other bots. To combat the A in war, the military decided to form the International Coalition of Nations, ICN, which launched counterstrikes worldwide. They persistently managed to control the war, forcing Harlan to leave for outer space. He left behind a message saying that he would come back to finish what he started. 28 years later, the military continues to search for Harlan and his goons. They enter an apartment complex, searching for the robots. They manage to locate one named Casa Vix through a device that can sense movement through walls. They plan to break down the door, but right as they do, an explosion causes them to fling backward. Calling for assistance, the men attack Casa, but he manages to fight them off. One soldier manages to shoot at Casa, but he breaks his gun before he knocks him unconscious by banging his head against the wall. Casa escapes more shooting by dropping down a few flights and notices more soldiers. He prepares to fight, but suddenly, the soldiers begin backing down. While he stands in confusion, a device behind him shoots him with electricity, causing him to be captured. Atlas, who has now grown up and is an analyst, wakes up to her computer telling her the daily stats of the day. She has a coffee prepared for her by command when she suddenly hears on the news that Casa has been captured. Atlas, after getting dressed, hurries out the door to find an ICN agent at her door. The two head to the ICN building. Meanwhile, the ICN commander defends his decision to hire Atlas, saying no one could track down Harlan better than her. His colonel tells him that Atlas failed her ranger test multiple times, but the commander refuses to budge. Atlas arrives, greeted by the commander, and reassures him that she is fine. Later, Atlas opens a suitcase containing Casca's head. He recognizes her, and she shocks him with a nearby device which manages to access his system. She distracts him with questions while he mocks her, saying that she is vain and doesn't trust people. He also pridefully claims that he can't die. She manages to hack into his system. Atlas discovers that Harlan is on GR39 Andromeda galaxy. Furious that she hacked into his code and found Harlan, Casa begins insulting her, telling her that Val cared more about the robots than her. He suddenly shoots out a sharp disc with bladed edges, but a sudden shield appears in front of Atlas. She tells him that he was right in saying she didn't trust anyone. She tells him that he can die, as she causes a shock to run through his head, causing his head to implode. Later, the commander appreciates Atlas for her work, as she has been the only one to locate Harlan. However, he refuses to let her go on the mission to capture Harlan. The commander's Colonel Banks arrives, and Atlas warns him that they won't be able to fight Harlan without her. Banks takes her to see a robot prototype named Zoe, who he believes is stronger than Harlan's gang. Zoe has been created with a neural link, which Val designed, which combines human and robot capabilities. Regardless of this, Atlas insists on coming, saying she knows Harlan better than anyone. The commander eventually agrees to let Atlas go. A spaceship called Deeb is launched in the night, where the team sets off to find Harlan. Atlas looks through some of her old files. She finds a picture of Val, her, and Harlan. She replays a memory of her mother talking about the future of AI and the neural link. Later, she is called for a briefing for all the crew on the ship. Atlas tells them not to trust AI and asks them to remove their neural links. She states that no information should be provided to AI about this mission. When the members doubt her knowledge, she firmly states that she knows Harlan better than all of them. Banks interrupts her and tells the crew that they will capture Harlan tonight, as he believes they are prepared. Next, Atlas apologizes to Banks for scaring the crew. He accepts her apology and promises that he knows what to do. Just before they can descend, an attack causes Deeb to start malfunctioning. Banks, already in his robot suit, puts Atlas into one. He forces her to descend to the planet. Once the team breaks through the external atmosphere, they notice ships coming at them at high speed. Banks and the others try to fight off the enemy, however many robots are damaged in the fight. A crew member, West, joins Atlas, trying to form a smooth landing. However, she is hit and killed by a missile. Banks demands that Atlas put on the neural link, however. She refuses and demands the fire thrusters be activated. She lands with force on the ground and is knocked unconscious. When she wakes up, she tries to contact mission control but gets no answer. The area around her is snowy and deserted. Frustrated, she tries to take control of the robot, but it refuses to let her gain access. She asks for the location of the escape pod and decides to head toward it quickly. However, the robot starts flying, which Atlas refuses to let it do. She explains that flying would get them detected, so walking is the best option. However, the robot refuses to allow her control of it. Atlas figures out a way around this by getting herself scanned and gaining access. They begin walking across the snowy terrain. The robot tells her that her earlier statements were correct. She asks to see the weapons on the robot and learns that she has shoulder cannons, rifles, missiles, thermal mines, energy fields, plasma blades, and an ion bomb for drastic measures. The robot introduces itself as Smith. He calls her Atlas, which freaks her out, and she reprimands it for scanning her. However, he reminds her that her name is on her badge, which leaves her embarrassed. The two continue on their way to the rescue pod. Walking along a forest, they find a bunch of armor robots but find that most of the crew has been killed. Atlas has a panic attack but manages to pull herself together and begins collecting the crew's tags. She notices that one robot has not been searched, but Smith tells her that the robot is empty. Realizing the robot is Zoe, Atlas realizes Banks is alive. Atlas suddenly notices someone who looks like Casa and believes Harlan created an army. Smith tells her she has to fight, but she backs away, and Smith falls over. The commotion alerts Casa and the other robots, who begin chasing her. They shoot at the robots, but unfortunately end up in an atmospheric storm. After being cornered, she orders Smith to activate the ion bomb. He is hesitant, but eventually does, and this causes everything in the surroundings to deplete. However, Casa seems to have survived, but before he can do anything, Smith and Atlas fall into a sinkhole caused by the ion bomb. Atlas realizes that her leg has been injured, with the bone protruding, and Smith activates the medical procedure. She slams her hand on the button, and a metal plate is attached to her leg while she screams in pain. Smith gives her a nutrition cube afterward. Atlas questions if Banks is still alive, and Smith tells her there is a 0.13% chance he is. She asks how they can increase their chances, and he asks her to use the neural link. He explains that the two of them combined would be able to work better. Atlas finally agrees, but asks Smith to stay focused on the mission and not access her memories. He agrees, and she finally syncs with Smith. Casa, who someone survived the bomb, tells Harlan that Atlas is alive. He commands Casa to find her. Harlan heads to a nearby table where Banks lays with his eye stretched open and his limbs tied down. Harlan sarcastically apologizes for the pain he is about to cause as he pokes a needle into Banks's eye, while Banks withers in pain. Smith tells Atlas that their synchronizing is being impacted by her lack of trust. She agrees to re-engage with Smith, and Smith comments that her heart rate increases more than ever at the sound of Harlan. He accesses her memory, and she confesses that her mother made Harlan. Smith understands that Harlan betrayed her and promises to keep Atlas safe. The two can connect as Atlas begins seeing everything Smith sees. Thinking further, they decide their next course of action, which is leaving the sinkhole. They decide to use thrusters at 30% to find the nearest cave. They emerge into the cave and leave through a nearby exit. Atlas decides to use the motion sensors and thermal mines, and Smith believes it's a great idea. Casa detects the heat from Atlas and Smith and follows them. Smith and Atlas detect Casa nearby and set off the thermal mines. An explosion ensues, after which Smith congratulates Atlas on her strategy. Casa begins talking to Atlas through Smith, who reassures her that he's just a transmission. Atlas finds the head of Casa nearby and crushes it with Smith's hand. Atlas decides to tag Harlan's base, but Smith refuses to help her. She tells him that she only wants to geotag it for the long-range bombers, however. Smith uses the neural link to stop her motor functioning when she tries to leave the robot. Smith sees into Atlas's mind and sees that Harlan had done the same to her mother. However, he notes that she doesn't feel grief, she feels guilt. Smith asks her about it, but she evades the question. She says that if they didn't destroy Harlan, all of the people who gave up their lives would have died in vain. Smith eventually agrees, giving her the location of Harlan's base. The two head to the base, where Atlas and Smith place a beacon. However, as they get closer, after noticing Harlan has Deeb, they are discovered by the enemy robots, and Smith is hacked. They try to escape, but Smith is shut down. Atlas is captured by Casa. Atlas is chained and finally meets Harlan, who says that he has been expecting her. Harlan claims that he loved Val, and he loved Atlas. Atlas begs him not to use Deeb's carbon bombs, but he insists that humanity would destroy itself, and he cannot let that happen. He plans on destroying humanity so humans can peacefully coexist under robot rule. Atlas realizes that Harlan has tricked them once again by leading them here. She realizes that Casca was sent to Earth for a reason, to bring the military to the planet, so Deeb could be used to destroy Earth. He forces her to lie down on the same table Banks had been on, so he could extract the second code to Earth's defenses out of her. She notices Banks nearby, and Harlan proceeds to extract the code through her eye while she screams in pain. Harlan tries to kiss Atlas, but she moves away. After he leaves, Banks tells Atlas that they should have listened to her. She confesses that she should have listened to Smith, and upon realizing that Smith is still here, he tells her that Smith couldn't have been destroyed. He hands her his neural link, asking her to call Smith, as he could save them. Atlas, after some struggle, manages to connect to Smith, who tells her they need to be 100% connected for him to come to rescue her. Seeing the situation, Atlas finally decides to open up to Smith, where she confesses that she hated Harlan as her mother preferred him and asked him to make her smarter. They had reversed the neural link, which gave Harlan access to a completely new interface. However, Val had stopped her and checked on Harlan. Harlan, who had been created to better human life, learned that humans would eventually destroy themselves. He had managed to take control of Val's motor skills and forced her to end herself. Val had asked Atlas to run, and Atlas carried the guilt of being the reason that Harlan had changed his code and killed her mother. Smith comforts Atlas, telling her that it was not her fault. He asks Atlas to trust him and connect with him, and she finally gives in. They synchronize fully, and Smith is reactivated. He breaks into the base and tells Atlas that they stripped him of all his weapons except an undocumented chest cannon. She asks Banks if he can fight, and he agrees. Taking some nearby weapons, they attack Harlan's soldiers. However, Smith tells Atlas that they have less time before the Deeb is launched. Banks sacrifices himself by shooting at nearby barrels with rocket fuel, causing the whole base to be destroyed and all enemy robots killed. With Banks's sacrifice, Atlas and Smith can escape the base. They defeat all the robots but find that Harlan has survived. The ship begins to launch, and Atlas asks Smith to deactivate the warheads and shoot at the ship. He warns her that he can't deactivate them all, but Atlas takes the shot and the ship is destroyed, without harming the two. As debris falls all around them, they manage to escape but find Harlan still chasing after them. Engaging in an epic battle where Harlan attacks them blow by blow, Harlan damages Smith, causing Atlas to die. Smith removes Atlas, still trying to revive her, while Harlan continues to attack him. Smith apologizes to Atlas for not protecting her, and Harlan destroys Smith. However, when Harlan looks for Atlas, he finds her gone until she stabs him through his head with a rod. Harlan tells Atlas that she needs him alive, but she says she can just take his CPU. He reminds her that he is humanity's last hope, and she believes they can do better. Harlan, in his last attempt to hurt her, tells her that she got here with the help of something that came from his reverse neural link, but she tells him that Smith was the better version of Harlan before finally killing Harlan and taking his CPU. Atlas goes to Smith, who says he can't join her back home and deactivates all features to redirect the oxygen to her. Knowing that Smith will shut down, she tells him everything about her. The two share a moment, where they thank each other. Smith gives her a cube of coffee, which makes her emotional. As the sun rises, Atlas is finally saved by the ICN who came to rescue her. Back on Earth, Atlas is visited by an ICN agent who tells her that Harlan's CPU could take years to decode. He also hands her a flower from the planet that Smith had kept for her. Atlas, now a ranger, sees a new model of Smith that she tried to recreate. As she tests it out, she links with the computer, which repeats everything she told him on the planet. Atlas smiles as she realizes that Smith and she are finally linked again as he welcomes her as a ranger. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.